Lod is a city 15 kilometers southeast of Tel Aviv in the Central District of Israel. In 2017 it had a population of 77,223. The name is derived from the biblical city of Lod, and it was a significant Judean town from the Maccabean period to the early Christian period. During the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, most of the city's Arab inhabitants were expelled in the 1948 Palestinian exodus from Lydda and Ramleh, also known as the Lydda Death March. The town was resettled by Jewish immigrants, most of them from Arab countries, alongside 1,056 Arabs who remained. Today, the city has an Arab population of 30%. Israel's main international airport, Ben Gurion Airport, is located on the outskirts of the city. The Hebrew name Lod appears in the Hebrew Bible as a town of Benjamin, founded along with Ono by Shemder Shemer. In Ezra chapter 2 verse 33, it is mentioned as one of the cities whose inhabitants returned after the Babylonian captivity. Lod is not mentioned among the towns allocated to the tribe of Benjamin in Joshua chapter 18 verses 11 to 28. In the New Testament, the town appears in its Greek form, Lydda, as the site of Peter's healing of a paralytic man in Acts chapter 9 verses 32 to 38. The city also finds reference in an Islamic hadith as the location of the battlefield where the Antichrist will be slain before the Day of Judgment. Pottery finds have dated the initial settlement in the area now occupied by the town to 5600–5250 BCE. The earliest written record is in a list of Canaanite towns drawn up by the Egyptian pharaoh Thutmose III at Karnak in 1465 BCE. From the 5th century BCE until the Roman conquest in 70 CE, the city was a center of Jewish scholarship and commerce. According to Martin Gilbert, during the Hasmonean period, Jonathan Maccabee and his brother Simon Maccabeus enlarged the area under Jewish control, which included conquering the city. In 43 BC, Cassius, the Roman governor of Syria, sold the inhabitants of Lod into slavery, but they were set free 2 years later by Mark Antony. During the First Jewish-Roman War, the Roman proconsul of Syria, Cestius Gallus, razed the town on his way to Jerusalem in 66 CE. It was occupied by Emperor Vespasian in 68 CE, in the period following the destruction of Jerusalem in 70 CE. Rabbi Tarfon, who appears in many Tannitic and Jewish legal discussions, served as a rabbinic authority in Lod. During the Kitos War, 115 to 117 CE, the Roman army laid siege to Lod, where the rebel Jews had gathered under the leadership of Julian and Puppos. Torah study was outlawed by the Romans and pursued mostly in the underground. The distress became so great, the patriarch Rabban Gamaliel II, who was shut up there and died soon afterwards, permitted fasting on Hanukkah. Other rabbis disagreed with this ruling. Lydda was next taken and many of the Jews were executed. The slain of Lydda are often mentioned in words of reverential praise in the Talmud. In 200 CE, Emperor Septimius Severus elevated the town to the status of a city, calling it Colonia Lucia Septimia Severa Diospolis. The name Diospolis may have been bestowed earlier, possibly by Hadrian. At that point, most of its inhabitants were Christian. The earliest known bishop is Aetius, a friend of Arius. In December 415, the Council of Diospolis was held here to try Pelagius. He was acquitted. In the 6th century, the city was renamed Georgiopolis after Saint George, a soldier in the guard of the Emperor Diocletian, who was born there between 256 and 285 CE. The Church of Saint George is named for him. The 6th century Madhaba map shows Lydda as an unwalled city with a cluster of buildings under a black inscription reading, Lord, also Lydia, also Diospolis. An isolated large building with a semicircular colonnaded plaza in front of it might represent the St. George Shrine. After the Muslim conquest of Palestine by Amr ibn al, as in 636 CE, Lod, which was referred to as Al-Lud in Arabic, served as the capital of Jund Philistin before the seat of power was moved to nearby Ramla during the reign of the Umayyad Caliph Sulayman ibn Abd al-Malik in 715 to 716. The population of al-Lud was relocated to Ramla as well. With the relocation of its inhabitants and the construction of the White Mosque in Ramla, al-Lud lost its importance and fell into decay. The city was visited by the local Arab geographer al-Muqadsi in 985, when it was under the Fatimid Caliphate, and was noted for its great mosque which served the residents of al-Lud, Ramla, and the nearby villages. He also wrote of the city's wonderful church at the gate of which Christ will slay the Antichrist. The Crusaders occupied the city in 1099 and named it Saint George the Leader. It was briefly conquered by Saladin, but retaken by the Crusaders in 1191. For the English Crusaders, it was a place of great significance as the birthplace of Saint George. The Crusaders made it the seat of a Latin Rite diocese, and it remains a titular see. It owed the service of 10 knights and 20 sergeants, and it had its own burgess court during this era.